Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the state of the race of the 2024 presidential election after Donald Trump's failed assassination attempt, and how this could impact the state of the race in the electoral map. Will it cause Donald Trump's rise in the polls to increase? But before we get started, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content. Also, we have memberships if you are interested. You can find a link to that in the description section. Press the like button, give this video a thumbs up. Now, back to the topic of today's video. Obviously, as we all know, Donald Trump almost got killed, and how this would affect the electoral map. So to start off this video, I do think that there will be usually likely red states that will be moving into the, safe column, solid red. So I do think Texas is usually likely. Now it's considered safe for Donald Trump following what has happened, obviously, with the failed assassination attempts. I also do think he will win Florida by over 10 percentage points in this election. Republicans keep making tremendous gains among Hispanic voters in the state of Florida specifically. Miami-Dade County flipped from blue to red to DeSantis in the 2022 midterms. He won by nearly 20 percentage points. Marco Rubio even won by over 10 percentage points, cracking double digits. I do think that Iowa is now safe for Donald Trump, as well as Ohio is now in the solid red column for the former president. Actually, a recent poll, or not really recent, but it had Trump up by 18 points in the state of Iowa. It is now too far right for Biden to even have it come close. It won't even be competitive, neither Ohio or Iowa, in this year's election cycle. Trump won Ohio by 8 points just 4 years ago in a less favorable year. Now, 2024, this election is more of a favorable environment for Donald Trump. I think he can very well surpass 10% in the state of Ohio. I also do think that typical solid blue states will now be narrowing up the margins and will become likely to maybe even possibly lean. For example, Washington State will now be lean for Joe Biden instead of safe, following what had happened. And recent polls, internal left-leaning polls, show Donald Trump coming within the margin of error of actually winning this state. And even Oregon is now likely. Biden's only going to win that by somewhere in between 7 to 10 percentage points following the failed assassination attempt. I also do think that Illinois, New York will now become likely for Joe Biden instead of usually safe, especially considering that what happened to Donald Trump. He almost passed away. And especially in New York, Trump had a rally obviously in the Bronx. I think if he improves on that county alone, then he's probably going to make the state a whole lot closer, even though he's more than likely not going to win it. But still, considering that Lee Zeldin came within 5 to 6 percentage points of winning this state just in 2022, the midterms of the governorship, almost defeating Kathy Hochul, I think that Trump could probably, perform in line with a Lee Zeldin margin in this state, but still not enough to win this ultimately at the end of the day. I also do think that the state of New Jersey is now in the lean column for Joe Biden. Recent polling has shown Donald Trump almost winning this state. Biden's lead on average is probably at like 5 to 7, somewhere in between there, percentage points. Trump also had a rally in New Jersey as well, so I think he can make this state in play. And recent, news coming from inside the Democratic Party, and it got leaked that they are concerned that states such as New York, New Jersey are now in play, and they are now battleground states or swing states, which in usual past elections they were not. But now all of a sudden, Democrats themselves are saying that New York can be close. It is now a battleground state, and they are worrying, and they are scrambling to replace Joe Biden, in which he is rejecting that. He personally wants to stay in the race. And I also do think that the state of Colorado is now going to be lean for Joe Biden following Trump's failed assassination attempt, as well as New Mexico will be a little bit closer, slightly closer. A tilt margin for Joe Biden, but still not enough for Trump to overcome the votes. In Albuquerque, that county is a very blue county, and it's hard for Trump to overcome that. It has a lot of white liberals, so as well as Colorado. This state's actually getting bluer, believe it or not, but I do think because of what happened to Donald Trump with his attempted assassination, he almost died, by the way. If he moved his head at the last second, he would have passed away. We would, things would be completely different. And as for, Colorado's just getting bluer, but still, I think it will get narrowed up because of what happened to Donald Trump. I think that will significantly drive people to turn out and skyrocket the numbers. Also, the Democratic Party is far less united than the Republican Party is. Obviously, everybody in the GOP is rallying behind Donald Trump. They are supporting him to be the nominee. But in the Democratic, Party, they are split. They are not united. And they do not, some people, like half of the Democratic Party does not want Biden to be the nominee, while the other half does. So because the Democratic Party is more split and the Republican Party, as of right now, is more united behind Donald Trump, especially following his failed assassination attempt, I think that will only make Trump's chances higher of actually winning this election. And one thing to point out or keep in mind or mention is that the last president who was shot ended up winning 49 states. And I know that's probably not going to happen. Trump will not win 49 states. But it just, it's a thing to keep in mind. And it goes to show, and it's an example of how Trump can actually make gains with the electoral map. Maybe he can get nearly like 350 for an example. And I also do think that both Georgia and North Carolina will now be in the likely column for Donald Trump. I think he would win both of those states by comfortable margins. Now, Georgia saw a 6-point shift towards the left in the 2020 election. Joe Biden ended up winning it by a margin of 0.2%. Because the margin of error was just so small for Joe Biden, he only won it by like 10,000 votes. I don't expect him to win it again, and I think Trump is more than likely. I think this is one of the more easier flips for the former president of Georgia. I also do think that Joe Biden is not going to get the nearly 90% among African-American voters as he got. I expect that turnout to significantly decrease or drop for Joe Biden. Recent polling has shown Trump getting nearly 20% among black support, and that may seem low, but it's definitely enough to flip a state like Georgia in 2024, especially following what happened with Trump's failed assassination attempt. But as for North Carolina, this state is getting redder. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't realize that, but Trump is making significant gains in the polls in this state. Recent polling has shown Trump getting nearly 10% in the state of North Carolina. On average, he's at like 6 points currently if the election was held today, according to the polls. And considering that they underestimated him in 2020, maybe he wouldn't buy even more than just the average of 6% that he got, maybe nearly 10 percentage points, which is more than enough to consider it a likely comfortable margin. I also do think that the state of Nevada will now be considered likely for Donald Trump. I think he would win it if the election was held today by probably around 5 to 6 percentage points. I think he's probably going to flip Washoe County. He would perform better in the Vegas area or Clark County, even though he's not going to win that, because obviously it's hard to overcome the votes in there. But still, if he's able to make significant gains among Hispanic voters, that will be key to his victory, and I think he will do just that, especially following his failed assassination attempt. That will only boost his numbers in the polls. And as for the lean states for the former president, I think Arizona is going to be lean for Donald Trump, as well as a state like Wisconsin and the 3 Rust Belt states, the most important ones that can ultimately decide who wins this election, Michigan as well, and Biden's state of Pennsylvania, in which he grew up here, even though he currently lives in Delaware. And speaking of Pennsylvania, the failed assassination attempt happened literally in this state. So I think especially in the state of Pennsylvania, following what happened to Donald Trump, I think Trump can make significant gains, especially in this battleground state, which would be key to his victory. If Trump's able to flip Erie County, I think he's on track to win the state, as well as perform very well in Century County and next to the Pittsburgh area, which is where he almost got killed at, by the way. Trump does make gains there because of what happened to him. I think Biden will probably lose this state. And if Trump flips Northampton County, which only went to Biden by like 0.7%, which I think Northampton would flip to Donald Trump, then Biden's probably going to lose this state, especially following what happened to Trump literally in this exact state. As for Michigan, because Biden actually received less votes than Donald Trump as an incumbent, and he wasn't even facing a real challenger. Donald Trump had a real opponent like Nikki Haley, and on top of the 100,000 people that have already voted uncommitted in the Michigan Democratic primaries, it goes to show you that Biden does not have the enthusiasm in the state as he once did just 4 years ago. Keep in mind that Michigan was the bluest Rust Belt state out of the most important 3, and it voted for Biden by nearly 3 percentage points. And Biden did get endorsed here by the governor, Gretchen Whitmer, but I think all that does not matter considering that Joe Biden performed very poorly in the primaries in this state. The only way Biden can win Michigan in 2024 possibly is because of Detroit. If he does perform better among African-American voters as well as women, I think issues like abortion, if that really drives voters to the polls and get Biden higher turnout, he might win this state. But still, ultimately, polls show that Trump is on the verge of flipping Michigan in 2024, especially considering what happened with the failed assassination attempt on the former president. But as for Wisconsin, this was the reddest Rust Belt state out of the 3 in 2020, so it's more than likely going to flip for Trump. Biden won it by less of a margin than Trump did in 2016, and that's a fact. He won it by 20,000 votes, 0.6%. The margin was extremely small, and all Trump has to do is flip 20,000 voters. That's literally it, and I think that's very possible, and he's going to do it. But as for Arizona, I think this state entirety will come down to Maricopa County. That county is very important. Biden won Maricopa by 2% in 2020. but I think Trump will probably win this state because of the border crisis, and I just think overall, even inflation, if you are poorer than where you were 4 years ago, issues like that really matters to these voters on top of what happened to Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. And let's get these districts out of the way. Nebraska's second, I think, will flip to Donald Trump by a tilt margin of probably 1 percentage point following the failed assassination attempt. I think this will only boost his numbers, especially considering Nebraska's a very red state. So I think Trump can probably make gains in here. I also do think that Maine's at large will now be in striking distance for Trump to actually flip this district from blue to red. Now, keep in mind, we have RFK in this race, who, by the way, does not have Secret Service protection, I believe, which he needs that. But, that's kind of off topic. I just wanted to mention that. But still, independent candidates and third parties perform very well in the state of Maine. They have an independent senator, Angus King. So I think if RFK takes away the support from Biden, it will only narrow up the margins. And finally, lastly, moving on to the tilt states before I end off this video, we have 3 states left to cover: Minnesota, Virginia, and New Hampshire, in which I think as of right now, all 3 of them will go to Donald Trump by narrow tilt margins of 1% or actually less than a percentage point. That's how close I think it can be, especially following Trump's failed assassination attempt. Considering that Biden does not have the BLM momentum or what happened to George Floyd just 4 years ago in this state, he's going to lose a lot of that support that he once had in 2020. And he won this state by 7 percentage points, as well as New Hampshire by the exact same margin. And speaking of New Hampshire, this state's a very anti-incumbent state. They favor the challenger, and Donald Trump, indeed, in this election is the challenger. So I think that alone can sway this race in favor of the former president. But still, it has a lot of college-educated voters, so I think that could favor Biden. But still, what happened to Donald Trump with the failed assassination attempt, I think that can help him win these states. But as for Virginia, Donald Trump got endorsed here by the governor, Glenn Youngkin, who had an amazing victory in 2021. So I think that endorsement of the governor can help Trump, but it might not be enough to win. But recent polling has shown that Donald Trump can very well win the state of Virginia in 2024. He's in striking distance away, and he's very close, and I think he can do it following especially the failed assassination attempt on him. I think that will only boost his numbers, and it will drive voters to the polls, and it will make some people that wouldn't originally vote for Trump actually vote for him because of what happened to him in, Pennsylvania. Also, there's a lot of things that went in Biden's favor or benefited him in 2020 that we are no longer seeing in this election. For example, we had COVID. Trump had to face a lot of baggage. He had that outlash. Now we don't have that anymore, so it's not going to come to Biden's benefit. Also, we have more third-party candidates, which Trump was limited in 2020, and it helped him in 2016, especially Jill Stein in the Rust Belt. We have RFK. That can take a lot of support away from Joe Biden, and it will come to Donald Trump's benefit. Also, we don't have these major, celebrity endorsements that will go in favor of Joe Biden this time around. We just don't have that. He does not have the enthusiasm. He does not have the momentum. Right now, Trump has all the momentum to gain as we come closer to November. Following the failed assassination attempt, following his rise in the polls, following his convictions, these all help Donald Trump, and Joe Biden is more than likely going to lose this election. So Trump has all the momentum going into this election. And also one thing, we don't have BLM, so when it comes to the youth vote or Gen Zers, that will not help Joe Biden, and I expect him to lose a lot of tremendous support among that as well. So if the election was held today following Trump's failed assassination attempt, he's going to win by basically in a landslide, I would call it, with 342 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 196. He can't even get past 200. So let me know what states you agree with or disagree with in the comment section down below. Do you think that what happened to Donald Trump with the failed assassination attempt, will it boost his numbers, and will he perform better than where he was originally before the failed assassination attempt? So make sure you guys share this video if you did enjoy it. One last final reminder is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content. Also, we have membership. If you are interested, you can find a link to that in the description section. Press the like button, give this video a thumbs up. That's pretty much it. Thank you everyone for watching.